Hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. My strange and sacred little miracles. Hello. Hello. Okay, I'm going to start off by reading a poem, well, an excerpt of a poem by Mary Oliver from Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Welcome. Welcome. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Melissa. We are streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So come on over to whatever works for you. If you ever need to shift, you can. And let's talk about this. Today we're on Merriment Mondays Live, if you don't know where you are somehow. And this is what we're gonna do today is we're gonna flip the switch, the fluorescent switch on a myth that you are a problem to be solved. Because you're not. Hi, Lorraine. Hello. You are not a glitch. You are not a math error. You are not an app that needs like a tech update. Okay? You are a compilation, a mosaic of memories and experiences and deep meaning. And you are complicated on purpose. You contain multitudes. You're not a project. You're a process. So even through all of this, you're here, which also means that something inside of you does believe in more, right? And that's not a flaw. That's evolution and progress and innovation trying to bloom through you. So today we're going to have like a mix of permission and proposition to stop identifying as broken, to stop identifying as our illnesses and our diagnoses and the things that we consider to be limitations, to reclaim our joy instead of putting it off and use it as a form of rebellion, and to choose ourselves again and again and again. And like to choose ourselves not instead of changing, but to choose ourselves and utilize that as the catalyst for change. Hi, Lori. Hi, Lorraine. Hello. Yes, and happy Memorial Day to you if you're here. I didn't even realize until yesterday that it was Memorial Day. I'm gonna have to eat a hot dog. If your inner world had a color today, tell us what it would be in the chat. And also just heads up for my beautiful rebel hearts in the Positive Pulse. When this episode goes up within 24 hours inside of the Positive Pulse, which is free, it comes with bonus resources, and I'll tell you what those are at the end. But it's going to help support you in your joy rebellion. And yeah, if you like a little something extra, and I know that you do, make sure you're inside that free community so you don't miss them. Okay, let's get started here. Nuance is so important. Somewhere along the way, self-help became sales. It became a sales pitch. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that has gotten in your ear and whispered to you that your sadness is a symptom and your weirdness is a diagnosis and your longings are liabilities. And these are true and they're not true. Nuance. Knowing when they are, when they aren't, knowing that, yeah, your sadness can be a symptom and your weirdness can be a diagnosis and your longings can become liabilities, but do they have to? Does that sound familiar? Like, have you seen this show up in your life where growth is sold to you as fixing instead of reclaiming? I'm loving seeing your colors pop in through now here. I'm on like a bit of a delay because of how many things I'm streaming to, so I love seeing this. So orange with some bright yellow, green, rainbow with extra hot pink, unicorns, mermaids, and fairies. Oh my goodness. That is a spirit today. Aquamarine. Mm, that's a beautiful color. Okay, so personal development, it's not supposed to be about fixing what's wrong. It's supposed to be about reclaiming what's real. Like when we talk about unlearning and going back and reclaiming and like remembering, essentially, there are things that we can learn, there are skills that we can build, and things that we want to do that are outside of ourselves. Like maybe you want to go explore a specific city or climb a mountain or make this much money. Those are like external goals, right? But really, the reason that you want those things, hopefully, is from a part of you inside that's kind of natural, right? It's intrinsic. It's bare, it's there. And when we're talking about reclaiming your joy, my goal with merriment making is essentially to get out anything that's in your belief system, anything that is kind of telling you that the goals that you have, like climbing a mountain or going to a new city, aren't even really yours, right? Like maybe the reason that you think that you should have this kind of hair or make that much money or go to that city is because of something external outside of you. And I want to strip all that away. I want to empower you to strip all of that away, to even figure out what the difference is between your internal goals, your internal happiness, your internal desires, your natural ones, and the ones that have kind of been influenced upon you. We've used this term influencer so readily, and it's really accurate how often we become influenced. And it's natural to become influenced, but it is stellar and difficult and more important to not be influenced, to not be influenced, to only be influenced by yourself. That is real power. You can look at other people that are doing things like you and be like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea that actually already goes with what I want to do. But if you're only trying to emulate and copy and do things because you think you're supposed to or have these expectations upon you, then what life are you living? It's not yours. You think it's yours because you've been sold it, but it's not really, is it? Has anybody ever told you that your emotions were too much or your dreams were unrealistic? Most of the time when that's happening, like if it's emotions, it's because the person doing it is uncomfortable with emotions being expressed. They're uncomfortable with being able to be around somebody that has that much pain or enthusiasm or experience. So they're like, oh, that's not good. Let's shut that down. And the same thing with dreams. I think sometimes also that can be parents who, or caregivers who kind of just like their main goal is to want to keep you safe, right? So they're like, well, please just get this kind of job because I've seen how hard the world is. And if you have a job as a lawyer or a doctor, it's probably going to be a lot easier for you than if you go after your dream. Easier, maybe, in terms of specific goals that maybe aren't unique to you. And that's kind of what we want to figure out. What is the difference between what I want and what other people are kind of telling me what I want? It's like how everyone ends up being a little racist, at least in America, because of the way that systemic oppression has kind of been around for so long. And also, we don't really even know what we think is beautiful naturally because of how much we've been influenced by media to tell us what is and isn't pretty and attractive. So if you can strip down all the way to like, who was I before I learned this? Who was I before I was influenced? That is a real form of rebellion. And it doesn't mean that you aren't growing. Growth is sacred and change is sacred. And making effort is not evidence that you are inadequate. It's a love letter to yourself, to your future self, to you now. Really, it's all, you are all the same. All of it is the same. It's just like different time periods. In oh my God, dialectical behavioral therapy, there's a central tenet, which is that you're doing the best you can and you can do better. And it's just this beautiful dichotomy of understanding that you can love yourself and improve at the same time. But the things that you want to improve upon are either specific skills that you didn't know that are unique to your own desires and goals that aren't being influenced by external sources, and doing better, improving on becoming more of yourself. How can you improve on becoming more of yourself? They're not contradictions, they're companions. They live in tandem with each other. And you can honor yourself exactly as you are and still want more. So, what's one area of your life where you're proud of how far you've come? And what's an area that you still crave more of, more inside of, more to do still? Tell us in the chat. Wanting things does not make you an ungrateful person. It makes you an alive person. It makes you a passionate person. It makes you connected, and that it means that you care. If you don't want anything, it can masquerade as contentment and gratitude, but it might actually just be apathy and defeat and numbness. Wanting things and wanting specific things demonstrates your connection to yourself, the world, your future, and your innate aliveness. The ancient Stoics believed that virtue lies in progress, not perfection. So Epictetus said that no great thing is created suddenly. So like it's like there's no overnight success kind of vibe with that, right? That you don't need to arrive, you just need to keep moving. You have to be deliberate, you have to be consistent, and you have to do that within the light, the lane of what lights you up, what's specific to you. There's an excerpt from a Rupi Kaur poem that says, if you were born with the weakness to fail, you were born with the strength to rise. If you were born with the weakness to fail, you were born with the strength to rise. You can do both. Okay, so when I'm talking about reclaiming joy and reclaiming yourself, when I say reclaim who you are, I'm not talking about going back to some perfect, polished version of you. I mean, meeting up with the parts of yourself that have been hiding in plain sight. The things that maybe you think about all the time, but you're not doing anything about. The dreams that you have, the thoughts that you have on repeat. The things that maybe you stopped doing when you were even a child because it was too weird, too emotional, too much, too strange, too disordered, all of that, right? So tell me, like, what is something that you've maybe been hiding? What's something you've been hiding? And maybe it's not plain sight. Maybe you have to dig a little. Think about when you were little, before the world taught you what was too loud, what was too much, what was too enthusiastic, what was too quiet. What did you love? What did you love to do? What little things brought you peace and excitement? What made you feel alive without apology? When I started thinking about this a couple years ago, one of the first things that came to me was I used to get books about animals, and I would lay outside in the grass, and I had that book, and I would have a notebook, and I would just copy the information that I liked out of that book into my own book. And then I would also I really I like being outside. I like being in dandelions specifically. And I I liked learning, and I liked writing it as a way to learn. And then sometimes I would add in my own notes about what I thought about this specific thing. So what that tells me is that I really enjoy learning. I probably like animals. I like being outside. I like processes that maybe don't make sense to other people for learning. Because the reason that that was buried was because when a couple people saw what I was doing, they were like, what is the point of this? Why are you rewriting something that already exists? You can just read it. And I didn't know that that was wrong because it wasn't. But then I stopped doing it because people were making fun of me, and adults were being like, this is really weird. Why are you wasting your time with this? Wasting your time. What have you been told that you'd like to do that's a waste of time? And what would it be? What would it be like if you had just never stopped doing that thing? Where would you be now? I even look at it in my business with I was thinking the other day actually about how because I just made the new Operation Merriment theme for June, and it's for us to hold up signs on the side of the road. Now, I've been doing this since hmm, 17 years, I think was the first, 17 years ago was the first time that I think that I did that. It was a goal that I had for a birthday, and before I turned 20, I wanted to make sure that I held up a sign on the side of the road that said honk if you're happy. And I loved it so much. I really did. And throughout my 20s, as my business developed, I started doing it as like a stunt, which I didn't even realize was performance art. And then I started creating a series where every month my photographer and I would go out and I would do something different and I would get really into a theme about it. I would say like honk if you love unicorns, and I would wear a mask with unicorns. And I really, really loved that. But with business, there's a lot of things that happen where it's like, well, you're going to need to make money. How is this making you money? Most of the time, when my parents would talk to me, or really anybody in business, I even remember going to something called the Blog Academy, and they reviewed everything that you were creating and gave you a literal report card. And basically, what they told me at the Blog Academy, what other business people were telling me, what my parents were telling me was, this is not a business. This is not a business. This is not anything. What you're doing of holding up a sign on the side of the road, like that's cute, but it's not making you any money. Now, put a pin in that because I don't know if you've seen the guy called Dude with a Sign, but that is his business. He dedicated his life, I mean, 15 years after I had already been doing it, to doing something very specifically, very consistently, over and over and over again, holding up a sign on the side of the road on just even a cardboard piece of thing. Like mine were decorated. I was wearing costumes. They were professionally photographed. It didn't, mine were better, arguably, at least to me. But what's different about him is that he listened to what he wanted to do and he followed it and he didn't stray around and he just kept doing it and that led to success. And I was just thinking like what if I had become the dude with the sign, you know? What if I had done that over and over and over again? Maybe that would have turned into something else where I become sponsored by someone and that's my whole business. And frankly, I would be fine with that. So I just want you to think about like, what things have you done in your life where people are like, this doesn't make any sense. How are you going to make money off of it? This is a waste of time. The way that you're going about it is stupid and silly and strange. And I want you to go back to those things and I want you to start doing them again. And I want you to do them even harder. I want you to do them even harder, even bigger, even weirder. So reclaiming yourself, going back to who you are, is not about acting childish. It's about letting your inner child live out loud. It's just now it's in a grown-up body and has power and can drive, right? It's giving yourself permission to paint with your fingers again and wear the neon pants and cry when you need to and say no without guilt or an explanation or a disclaimer and say yes without justifying why you want something and not editing your enthusiasm to fit someone else's needs. So when you, oh, I'm a caregiver for my grandkids and I want to reclaim myself as a wellness coach. I'm in the process of preparing and planning to take clients in 2026. I want to believe that I can do this. Of course you can. Anybody can do anything. That's the thing. That everything that we say is impossible is only impossible until somebody does it. So I'm gonna hold that because I'm gonna show you some like things specifically as kind of pushing yourself of how to jump into that. When you come back to yourself, it's not it's kind of antithetical to follow a trend or a checklist. It's so much feeling and understanding and knowing and remembering. But the moment this can be the moment that you realize that you are not broken, that you are not limited, that you have always been bright, and maybe the world just didn't know how to deal with that yet. So tell us something that you've been hiding, something that you've been holding down or toning down, just not even with the intent always to fit in or blend in, but because you were told that it was strange or silly or stupid, or something that you loved as a kid that still lives in you now, that you're worried like, oh, this isn't professional enough, this isn't good enough, this isn't adult enough, this isn't appropriate enough. Adults don't do this. This is stupid, strange, and silly. Cloudy Day Chronicle says she believed she could, so she did. Cute, yes. Derek Walcott has a poem called Love After Love. And he says, give back to your heart, to itself, to the stranger that has loved you all of your life. You have always been there. Your little kid with you has always been there. And speaking of kids, I want to talk about like how something that I see so often is well, it's really wonderful when adults have kids and they remember how to play through them, right? That's fantastic. And you don't need to have a child in order to do that again, to remember who you are, to remember how to play, to remember that you can play. I was just hosting another Operation Merriment for April, and we were doing sidewalk chalk, and we had a lot of adults come through, and one of the people that was with me at the event noticed and commented that it seems like, she said, all of the things that you do, you get a lot of questions about like, why are you doing this? Who is this for? What is the point? And it seems like adults really don't, they're confused about the fact that it's for them and not children. And it's not that children can't participate. The thing is that kids know naturally how to do what I want to do, right? What I'm teaching. Kids get it. Kids don't need a lesson on how to get back to themselves. They already are there. They never left. They haven't left yet, right? And hopefully they never will. And if we teach ourselves how to get back to ourselves, we can better teach children how to not leave. And that's how you heal generations. But going back to the play element, those are two very specific observations that were very astute from her about why people are like, why are you doing this? What's the point? And that's a really good question to ask yourself about like what you might have stopped doing or toned down because people said stuff like that. What's the point? It's your version of frivolous, right? What's the point? I don't get it. Doesn't seem effective, doesn't seem strategic, doesn't seem productive. And then what about just the concept that we feel like we need a kid to play? We need a kid to get into Chuck E. Cheese, maybe legally. I'm not sure on that. But why is it that we need an excuse to play? Because let's be real about like how many parents I talk to that are like, oh my God, it's so much fun to just like eat random breakfast cereal with cartoons on the box and mushrooms, marshmallows in there. And then I can like go play with sidewalk chalk and kites and I get to do that again. It's like, no, you always could. You literally always could. Why are you scared? You're scared that people are gonna judge you and tell you that you're not professional and that you're not adult and that you're not responsible and that you can't do other things because you do this. As a big kid, I'm telling you that those are things that people can think, will think, and will say. But is it worth your joy, your whole life of being alive, to just not engage in stuff because you're worried that other people are going to think that you're not something enough or too much of something? It's very silly. It is a way that you are keeping yourself small. You don't get to play because you have a child. You are playing with a child. And you don't need a child in order to experience fun and joy and silliness. What would your life be like if you if you had to babysit some kid today, right? You get a 4-year-old girl come to you and you have to entertain them, but she says she loves everything you love. What permission are you going to give yourself to do. What are you going to do? You're like, oh, you like everything that I like? Okay, sweet. Now I get to do this through the lens of a child. That's incredible. That's a really good prompt for you to think about. Write a poem about that, where you would take. It's not even your inner child. It could be just like a practice. Because I think sometimes we can merge our people pleasing and caregiver mentality into how to serve ourselves. If you imagine that your happiness depends on how much, if you imagine that someone else's happiness and well-being depends on how much happiness you're experiencing, you're more likely to put effort into it because of those kind of like weird beliefs that we have around how important it is to care for others. But like, what if you just use that as fuel? What if you use that as a little hack, as a as a little thing in order to kind of figure out a new way to do it? Joy has been domesticated. It's been watered down into little affirmations and tote bags and pastel mugs that say like, I don't know. I don't even know anymore. It's all so saturated and gross and annoying and too simple in a bad way. But joy, like real joy, is dangerous. It's disruptive. It disrupts apathy. It questions suffering and it dares to be bright and sparkle in spite of adversity and contrast and despair and pain. Joy is, it is dangerous. It's important. It's deeply important. The joy rebellion is not saccharine, it's sovereign. It doesn't ask for permission. It builds like floats in a parade from your pain. It transforms shit. Okay? It allows you to look at everything from a different perspective, to have fun, to be silly, to giggle in a graveyard. And like imagine that you're dancing with your anger. You're not when you are tapped into joy, not just in a floaty way on a tote bag, like good vibes only, then you become layered instead of lost, right? I feel like when we have these very large phrases and ideas and beliefs that are like insidiously built into our system, that we become more disconnected than we were before. There's too much stuff to have to tune out so that you can tune into yourself, you know? You are supposed to have layers, but if you have too many layers on top of your real layers, you're never going to be able to figure it out. You're allowed to honor the shit that you've been through. You should. Your scars, your experiences, your trauma, embrace that and still make rainbows. Still play, still have fun. Don't let it stop you. You're allowed to choose being delighted and not worry that you're being apolitical or a piece of shit because you are not indulging every minute in pain and misery Olympics. When you choose delight, it's on purpose. It's deliberate. It's not a distraction. It's not a dopamine hit on the side. It is a devotion, a discipline to delight and wonder and happiness and joy and awe and fun and silliness. You get to be a rebel against numbness with wonder. And numbness, I really believe, is something that we use to explain everything. So I don't know if you've ever been asked and said, like, what's wrong? What's going on? And the answer to what's wrong is, ugh, everything. I never accept that as an answer because it's not helpful. It's not specific and we can't do anything with it. And there's always something under that that's actually very specific. So if I press and I say, really, everything's wrong? Like what? Maybe the first answer you give me is going to be superficial, but the next one, that's the real issue. It's not everything. Everything is not wrong. Everything is never wrong. You're still here, you're still alive, there's still air, there's still waterfalls, there's still rainbows, there's still people and connection and kids and sidewalk chalk and color and your breath. Like there's so much good. Everything is not wrong, but you are experiencing something that is extremely uncomfortable. So let's talk about that. So in that way, when people say like everything's wrong when there's actually one thing wrong, I believe that when people are experiencing numbness, it's actually because they are experiencing so many emotions that are uncomfortable and new and nuanced that they haven't explored and processed, that they have to disconnect and tap out. And that is where numbness comes from your inability to go into these emotions. And maybe all of them are happening at once. So we can rebel against that with wonder and awe and getting curious about ourselves, about life, and processing and feeling all of our emotions, not just good vibes only, but somatic awareness and processing of all of your emotions and sensations. With the goal to be happy, yes, but not as a like weird toxic tote bag over umbrella that's like, well, if you're feeling angry, just stop. That doesn't make any sense and it's not going to work and it's actually going to make you less happy in the long run, less productive in the long run. There's a neuroscientist named Richard Davidson, and his research shows us that joy isn't just like the fluffy stuff. It's a measurable neurobiological state that increases your resilience, your immune response, and motivation. This is real well-being that we're talking about. So in other words, joy makes you equipped to face the world. It makes you more equipped to face the world. Even though we might think that it's so frivolous and unimportant, and people who are happy are stupid or naive or silly or whatever. It's not true. Maybe it is for some people, but it's not an across-the-board statement that you can make. And it certainly doesn't need to be true for yourself. One of my favorite poets, Mary Oliver, has this thing that I love to repeat, which is, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What do you want to do? You are temporary. This is temporary. This experience is temporary. And every day, every minute that you waste worried about how to fit into something that was expected of you, these standards that were set not by you, is a waste. Every minute that you don't take to peel the layers back to see who you really are is a waste. And do you want to spend your last day on Earth? What if today was the end? Do you want to spend the last day being like a slave to the machine? No, rage against it. If you are an onion with layers, but really right now what's happening with most of us is that we're like in this big other onion. There's like a little onion inside of a big onion, and we have to get all these layers on top that are actually like rotted and raw because they don't make any sense for any of us to get down to our layers. And it's not that it's bad that we're smaller. It's more specific and it's true. That's really what this is. It's truth. So if you've been tuning into me lately, you've probably heard me drop the term alt-joy, meaning alternative joy. And I want to talk about what that actually means, because it's not just a cute nickname, even though it is. Alt-joy is the heartbeat of merriment making. It is like joy with teeth and grip and roots and resistance. It's about choosing happiness and fun and silliness because, well, not because life is easy, but because it's worth fighting for. Your joy is worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. Your truth, your experiences, your future are all worth fighting for. So use the fact that you care so much to care about yourself. Alt joy is what happens when we say, I'm not going to make myself small to be digestible. I'm not going to chase happiness and goals that are somebody else's aesthetic and ideas and standards. And I refuse to confuse my productivity with purpose. Alt joy is the alternative to hustle culture and perfectionism and toxic positivity. And this is an archetype that expresses itself through many multitudes. And we actually even have a quiz to figure out what your Alt-Joy archetype is. But this archetype umbrella of Alt-Joy, it's an expression of fun and happiness in a real nuanced, messy, and magical form. So it's not a trend, it's defiance. And it's what happens when you refuse to flatten yourself into an algorithm-friendly version of healing. So I mentioned there's like a quiz inside the Positive Pulse, which is free if you're not in there yet, uncustomary.org/positive-pulse. We have 9 archetypes of Alt-Joy identities that are combining nuance and grit and resistance and tenderness and real life experience and shit. And they are not who you have to become. It's just who you already are in this moment. You probably have all of them in you, and you probably will change throughout your life. But it's a really cool place to start, to meet yourself where you are and to figure out like, what can I do now? What would be best for me right now? What kind of modalities would I like based on who I am, right? So we have reluctant joy seeker. These are people who are like very logic based. They're not here for the fluff. They're secretly craving something more, but maybe they're scared that they are going to come off superfluous. Then there's the Autopilot Achiever, and they are out here checking every box on the list except the one that says, I'm fulfilled. There's the body harmony seeker, and that's somebody who might be experiencing chronic illness or pain or mental illness and or body image issues, right? And they're ready to stop treating their body like a battlefield. There's the heartfelt caregiver, and that's the person who's holding everything together while everything else is falling apart, but maybe forgetting to take care of themselves. There's the aspirational dreamer who is bursting with vision, but they are overwhelmed by the logistics and the how to do it. There's the community-centric activist who is out here trying to heal the world, and they want to do it without losing themselves in the process. There's the quirky nostalgic who is fueled by fun and childlike stuff and sticker books and VHS tapes and unrepentant weirdness. There's the wellness seeker who is addicted to growth, but wondering if peace is allowed as well in this process. Can we feel content and stimulated at the same time? How, please? And then there's the creative explorer who is here to make art from scraps and joy from chaos and let art lead them. And you don't have to pick one. You can be a beautiful patchwork quilt of all of this. And if you don't know what you are, you can find out for free at uncustomary.org/quiz. Tell us in the chat what archetype is speaking to you today. We have the reluctant joy seeker, the autopilot achiever, the body harmony seeker, the heartfelt caregiver, the aspirational dreamer, the community-centric activist, the quirky nostalgic, the wellness seeker, and the creative explorer. Tell us where you feel you are today. Maybe it's the one that you got on the quiz, or maybe it's something new. And having archetypes like these are not about boxing yourself into something. It's about seeing your flavor as valid. And then finding more resources for it. So when you take the quiz, it'll like give you little examples of resources that are already free that you can try that might work well with where you are now or what you want to work on. And then we have additional resources like mini challenges for each archetype. The thing is that you don't need to become somebody new to be happy. You just need to meet the version of yourself that's already dancing like on the sidelines and the margins. And again, these archetypes are not buckets to climb into and stay there and put the lid on and be like, well, I'm this, so I'm that, and I'm this, so I can't. It's not an excuse, it's a mirror. It's an idea. It's an inspiration. And the moment that you see yourself more clearly, the moment you name your secret aches inside of you is the moment that your happiness starts to come home. Nuria Wahid has a poem called Salt, and here's a quote from it. I love myself, the quietest, simplest, most powerful revolution ever. This is what self-love is. Self-love is not just like a bath and bullshit. It's the secret aches. It's letting the secret aches have a space to play in your life and prioritizing the crap out of them. Okay, so let's talk about some tools that you can use as part of your own joy rebellion. The first one is, we can call it the brightness log or the feeling fully me log. And this is where, like, you're not always going to be happy. You're not always going to be bright. And that's okay. It's expected. It's normal. It's human. It's natural. But I do want you to try tracking what made you feel wonderful, what made you feel alive and warm and free and awake and that sense of awe instead. So I think about when I had journals in high school in a Metal Edward Scissorhands book that was just clouded with misery and self-hatred and just awful, awful, awful stuff, really. Then I think about my happy journal now and the difference in mood of not just writing in it, but reading it. Either way, the experience of the content of that is so different. So I want you to start keeping a log. It can be a happy journal. It can be a gratitude journal. It can be a wonderful, warm wonder workbook. It's actually a pretty good name. And I want you to ask yourself daily, when did I feel the most like myself today? When did I feel the most alive today? And then keep that as a log, and you will have clues as to what you want to do more of. And if you're still not feeling that way, then maybe ask yourself things like, what is the secret ache that I have that's dying to come out? And this kind of energy is also in the free Jumpstart Your Joy class. That's a way to kind of create your own fun algorithm. And that's inside of the Positive Pulse as well. It's a really good resource. Okay, the second tool, so we have the Feeling Fully Me Wonderful Warm Wonder Workbook. Getting out of control with the names here. And that's logging what makes you feel like the most like yourself and alive. And then the second tool is reverse journaling. And whenever anyone tells you, here's another tip. If anyone ever tells you, here's a prompt for journaling, you do not need to write that answer down. You can type it, you can write it, and you can also speak it out loud. You can put it into a voice note. The point is just to not do it in your head, because when you think, you're thinking so rapidly, so quickly, and so nuanced that it's very difficult to process that fully. So like I can think a million things in my head in an instant, but it's going to take me a little bit longer to explain it to you. And by needing to explain it even out loud to yourself, you're going to need to follow some threads. And you also will resist the urge to be pulled into negative self-talk, right? So if you follow these prompts, you can do them out loud. You don't have to journal, and you can also type it. You can voice it. It doesn't matter. It's just about getting it outside of your head. So with reverse journaling, here are some things that you can ask. Instead of like, what's wrong with me? I want you to ask, what part of me is trying to protect me today? There are different kinds of therapy where they use things called parts work. And I find that to be really helpful. The idea that there's a manager part of you, that there's a lover part of you, that there's a director, that there's a host, that there's, the same way that you probably have all the archetypes in you, you have all of these other elements in you, all these other parts. So it's like, what part of me is trying to protect this other part of me? And why? And from what? And then you can also ask, like, and going along with the why, like what fear is underneath this pattern? It seems like I keep not doing this even though I want to. What am I really scared of happening if I went ahead and did that? And then another twist that you could try is playing out the worst case scenario. So this is something that I think is really important to do in multiple aspects of life. So let's take that thread of the idea is like, what's wrong with me? But we don't want to use that language. So then we're going to ask ourselves, what part of me is trying to protect me today? And then maybe you get a little bit of an answer. And then you ask, okay, well, why is that happening? Why do I feel like I even need protection in the first place? And then from there, you ask, okay, so I feel like I need to be protected from this. And maybe that's because I'm scared of. I'm scared of something. Otherwise, I wouldn't need protecting from it. So, what am I scared is going to happen if this happens? The thing that I'm protecting myself from. So, like, an example would be you are putting up a guard. So, the part of you that's trying to protect you is a host, a caregiver, a manager, a parent aspect of you that is scared that if you let your guard down, you are going to be lied to or taken advantage of or manipulated in some way. And then you're like, okay, so what is the fear under that? Why do I feel like that's happened? It's like, well, because this happened in the past. You were lied to by your parents, or you were manipulated by a boyfriend, or someone told you that, this was the truth, and then you found out that it wasn't the truth. And that was very painful, and I don't want to experience that again. So therefore, I'm putting up a guard, right? And then we ask, what is the real fear underneath of this pattern? Yeah, we know what I'm trying to protect myself from, and we know why, but what am I actually afraid of will happen again? What is the pain that I'm afraid will reoccur? And that is maybe that you're going to lose a relationship, that you're going to lose confidence in yourself, that you're going to feel like your self-worth is taken from you, right? What are you actually scared will happen if you don't keep this guard up? We keep following the why, we keep following the thread all the way to the bottom. And that helps you understand your own behavior and how to interrupt it. So if you're scared that a relationship is going to end, what you can do at the bottom of this thread is like, okay, so I'm scared a relationship is going to end because I'm going to find out that someone isn't really who they say that they are. So how can I use logic to counteract this? And maybe that looks like, well, I've fact checked everything that person has said for my own protection, and now I know that is true. Really, all I can do is trust. Am I willing to trust? Maybe that looks like figuring out how to kind of expose yourself to that fear in incremental ways. Very, very small at first. Maybe it's just thinking about it. And then maybe it's putting yourself in a situation where you get a little bit of a taste of it, or you talk about it and you build up your threshold of what you can take and handle in that specific area of life because you're practicing what it would be like to experience it. And a way to do that is with the worst case scenario. So let's say that this thing happens that you're afraid of. Let's say that the worst thing that you can imagine happens. Now we're in really the first stage of the exposure of just imagining the fear, right? What would it feel like? What emotions will come up when that happens? Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling neglected? Are you feeling abandoned? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling hopeless? What are you feeling in that situation? What do you imagine will happen? And really let yourself go there so that you do feel those feelings. Remember that you can only feel a feeling for 90 seconds max if you really allow yourself to surrender to that thing. And then I want you to ask, if this were to happen, if this did happen, The worst case scenario, and I feel all those things. Can I survive this? Can I handle it? What are examples of things that I have been able to do in the past that demonstrate that I am capable, that I am confident, that I am resilient, that I will be able to handle this? You know more now than you ever did in the past. 10 years ago, you know way more than you did. You know more than you did yesterday. So you are only more equipped to handle difficult things. That doesn't mean that we want to seek them out, but it means that we want to feel empowered, that we don't need to live in fear in order to live our lives. That guard is a metaphor for everything. What would it really feel like? Could you survive it? And how can you plan for it? This doesn't mean doomsday prep where you have 4,000 gallons of beets in your garage. It means like, okay, so let's say that happened. This is something that's really eating at me. I'm worried that this thing is going to happen. What are my options? Where are the exits? What are the alternatives? What are other rocks that I can overturn? Is this really the end of me? Or is it that I don't feel prepared for how to experience it when it happens? Planning for something, giving yourselves resources and knowledge and understanding where the metaphorical or literal exits are ways to establish a sense of control in yourself and build confidence in your own skill set and for your future. Confident people aren't afraid of a situation because they've been there before and or they've planned for it so much. If you were going to like be a boxer in a ring and you've never thrown a punch or taken one in your entire life, you're going to be scared as shit going into that ring. But if you have trained over and over and over again every day, even if this is your first fight, that version of you, the one that's trained every day, is going to be so much less scared than the one who has just been thrown into this situation. So how can you metaphorically or literally prepare yourself for the ring? Because otherwise you're just going to be, you're not, I don't know. It's just scared. It's just holding up. So how can you imagine the worst case scenario? Imagine what it would really feel like. Think about how you can survive it and the things that you've done that demonstrate that you could, and plan for the worst case scenario, because once you do that, there's going to be a sense of relief that comes to you. Avoidance is one of the biggest things keeping us from our own happiness. On the largest level, it's avoiding our own mortality. And on a micro level, it's avoiding the very specific things that are issues for us that we would rather just not deal with. But the truth is that they're going to come get you no matter what. So you might as well be prepared to get in the ring. And this is not intended to be fear-mongering. It's about reclaiming your power by dragging your fear into the light where it can't shape-shift anymore. And you're like, okay, all right, I thought that was a monster, but it's actually just a coat rack. It's not that bad. But the most fear that you had was the concept before you turned the light on and thought that it was a monster. The anticipation and the avoidance is the worst part of most shit. Turn the light on, acknowledge that it's a coat rack, and get a nightlight. Okay, the third tool is, okay, and also I wanted to go back and say that as an example for Shining Star Wellness, Melissa, when you said that you wanted to be a caregiver, or you are a caregiver and you want to turn into a wellness coach, right? And that your coordinating schedules will be a challenge. So this is an example of where you can play that out with, right? So ask yourself what is preventing you from planning this. Ask yourself what fear is underneath this pattern, and then play out the worst case scenario of your schedules are so chaotic, it seems impossible. What are you going to do if you have so much business that you don't know what to do with? How can you plan for that? What is it going to feel like in your body? Imagine it. Imagine the worst things that you think will happen. Put your fears on the paper, turn the real light on, and figure out what you've done in the past that demonstrates that you can survive it and how you can plan for it, how you can build the skills so that by 2026, when you launch this, you aren't scared anymore and you're prepared for multiple scenarios. That's real self-love. That's real personal development, is real shit. Okay. Tool 3 is delightful rituals. So this is just doing something 5 minutes a day that makes no sense. It makes no money, but it does make you smile. It makes you feel good. And again, this is not frivolous, and it's not about imagining that every part of life needs to feel good, because the things that I just told you to do about imagining the worst case scenario are absolutely not about making sure that you are like living a hedonistic lifestyle and making sure that everything feels good all the time. We are actively and deliberately stepping into places of discomfort for our own evolution. And you do need to deliberately include delight rituals in your life. Again, makes no sense, makes no money, but does make you smile. So these are things that are silly and frivolous on purpose, and it's going to be unique to you, right? So maybe it's taping googly eyes to your coffee mug or using Gorilla Glue because that shit holds. And maybe it's speaking to your inner critic in a Muppet voice or doing anything in a Muppet voice. Manamana. Maybe it's wearing a sticker or name tag that says, I am an official cloud inspector. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's dyeing your hair pink or wearing crazy outfits. But the point is that it's a data point for your nervous system that says it is safe to be happy. It is safe to feel good. It is safe to feel joy. And not everything is the worst case scenario. In fact, look at all this good. When we say everything is wrong, these are the examples of why it's not. Science supports this, that novelty stimulates dopamine. And small, delightful interruptions can train the brain towards optimism over time. Long-term, prolonged optimism, where we start looking at the world through a different lens and perspective, not through rose-colored glasses. We're being practical optimists here, but we are allowing ourselves to say, oh, wait, it's not the worst thing that's going to happen every single time. And if the worst thing does happen, I am prepared for it. This happens more, especially when we repeat it with intention, being deliberate, scheduling your delight. Behavioral activation theory backs this up. So in the Positive Pulse, there's a free 1-minute joy challenge that goes on for a week. And I think earlier Kendall was saying that they completed the 1-minute dance challenge this morning. I would love to see it again on a video. Let's see it. Tag me. Ariana is saying like delight rituals. Yes, I love this. Now, so again, in the Positive Pulse, there's 1-minute delight rituals that go on for a full week. And they also, what I like to do is in the same way that I'm a practical optimist, I also like to be to mix research and science and psychology and evidence in with the delight. So when I tell you to do this thing, it's not because I'm just saying like, oh, maybe try it. It's because I've researched how things affect your body and your brain and your physiological state. And I want you to understand that if you are willing to believe and participate in this for 60 seconds, you might actually feel a shift. And the evidence is in the comments, truly. The proof is in the pudding, so to speak. The writing's on the wall. How many things can we say like that? Okay, so if you go even just to day one and you scroll down in the Positive Pulse, people are like, I didn't believe this was going to work. I can't believe that it changed. 60 seconds, 60 seconds. Okay. So I want you to attempt this. I want you to attempt to schedule delightful rituals. And here's the thing, you don't need to be good at coming up with this kind of stuff. I think that's something that people get really like confused and overwhelmed by. Like, okay, well, what the fuck am I going to do every single day that's novel for the rest of my life? It's like coming up with the idea for dinner every night, which is insane. No one told us that we had to do that, right? But that's why this is my job. There are some jobs where they're coming up with recipes and low budget meals and ways to make dinner, and you can Google that, and we live in an amazing age where you can find that. But my job is to give you delightful rituals every single day so that you don't even have to think about it. You just have to follow it. The recipe chef makes you dinner ideas, and the accountant does your taxes, and the merriment maker interrupts you sacredly, sacred disruption through alternative joy to keep your brain and your body stimulated and at peace. Isn't that the best state to be in? When your body feels calm, but your brain feels wonderful and active and alive? That's the goal that we're going for here. Okay, so inside the Positive Pulse, check out the 1-minute joy challenge. There's 100 free resources in there, at least. And you can also go above and beyond and go further into the 5-day reset or the 30-day reset. And the 30-day reset is less than $1 a day. Super cheap. And there's all sorts of different kinds of ways to learn in there, like tapping and video and audio and pep talks and worksheets and physical challenges. It's all available. All different kinds of learning are supported in there. Do not allow yourself to be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break and they can be mended. And it's not with time, but it's with intention. So I want you to love yourself intentionally and extravagantly and unconditionally. L.R. Nost says, the broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. So if something has cracked open in you today, if a part of you sighed in relief or was like, oh my God, okay, thought I was the only one, right? You're not. This is your rebellion, and it does not stop when this call ends. Melissa says, turn the light on. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So what comes next? Usually I'll kind of think of something that I have to kind of align, I guess, with what I'm talking about for the live call. But today I want to like let you choose your own adventure. So I'm just going to go through very quickly some options for you to expand this idea, to explore this further, and to get your own delightful rituals in check on tap, right? So in the Positive Pulse, there's also a 30-day joy challenge for free. Okay. And the Positive Pulse is free. It's uncustomary.org/positive-pulse. The link is in my bio, and it's also on my main website, uncustomary.org. Next, after that, maybe go into the 5-day reset. Okay. This is quick, no pressure reboot, bite-sized practices that help you feel lighter and clearer and calmer. Again, changing the body so that it's calm and increasing the mind stimulation and aliveness, right? And we are looking at all of these. They take 5 minutes or less, and they're science-backed. And you also get a bonus pep talk and tapping, a guided tapping. And then if you want to go deeper, same energy, deeper vibe, 30-day reset. Same thing, way more options, different things than the 5-day reset, just more. So, and you can repeat these. It's so cool that you can just keep going. So if you had both of those, you would have 35 things to repeat forever. And then if you want like the novelty boosts, the dopamine hits to your phone, to your mailbox, I have good news texts that you get every weekday. And I have the Merriment Mail newsletter, where you get a physical copy of a newsletter with 6 sections that are themed for that month on a different topic. Remember snail mail? Let's get analog. So these are little tiny reminders, joy injections of hope when you need it most. And if you need a hype woman in your pocket, I also have pep talks that you can get. And the hype woman thing is also coming soon when I mentioned that there's a secret project coming, and we're going to announce it on June 4th. And if you're inside of the Positive Pulse, you will get a special. So if you're interested in having a hype girl in your pocket, then you're going to want to stay tuned for that secret project. But in the meantime, you can check out the pep talks. And all of these that I'm talking about are at uncustomary.org/services. Or if you're inside of the Positive Pulse, on the sidebar, it says go further, and you can click and learn on all of them. And if you want to play into joy, if that's something that's inspiring you, then I also have a deck. So this is the Merriment Making Missions deck, and this is 111 cards. They're rainbow on the back. They're rainbow on the front. And they're divided up into different sections of ways to explore and play. So we have celebrating, creating, exploring, playing, movement, self-care, and kindness, and they all correspond to a shape. So like you have the shape key, and then you pull a card and it says have a Nerf gun battle, or it says pop some bubble wrap, or it says do an at-home face mask, or it says go on an art picnic, or it says go visit a gift shop. And there's just constant ideas for you to do. They're fantastic for yourself, but they're also really good for clients if you are any sort of social worker, caregiver. They're great for children. They're just fun. It's 111 days of activities. Okay. And then I also have a book if you want that. Hold on. I should have these ready. I should have them ready. Here, I'll also show you one of the newsletters too. Okay. So remember I mentioned the newsletter. So see, it's double-sided, it's color, and it comes in a colorful envelope, and there's different sections on here. It's like a note from the editor, a word of the month, a poem that I write, a merriment making tip, a quote, a perspective check, and a list of recommendations and things to try. And then we also have the This Is About You book. This is my first book, and it is so colorful. There's full color pictures. Everything that I do is colorful. It's beautiful. It's meant to be written in. It has 5 stars on Amazon. There's amazing reviews. One of the best compliments that I get is it's extremely conversational and helpful. There's lists at the back of every single chapter for things for you to try, and they're from all different kinds of angles. Melissa says, they're so fun. I love to use them for myself and my grandkids too. Yeah, I think we're talking about the deck here for that. And thank you so much. I'm glad that you're using them. Let's see. I also have a self-love workbook. I'm not getting back up to get that, but it's a 30-day workbook, and you can write in that, and it kind of shifts from introspective journaling into physical in real life challenges. So these are interactive resources of loving yourself. And then we've also got vaults. So the Merriment Makers turned into a vault this spring. And that means that it's extremely accessible in terms of price. It used to be very high priced because there was things like group coaching and all these other additional services that were live inside of it. But now they're finished and they're done. And now you can just go and access them as a personal development, happy resource library. And in the Feel Good Troop, there's 50 masterclasses and some other things. And in the Merriment Makers, there's 1,500 resources that I've counted. Now, if you've been with me and following every little detail, which I hope you are, and that you're stalking me and you're so cute, I love you. But I lost my whole database. Like my hosting got hacked by some random person that was using me as a place to host their torrents. Very bizarre, but it became infected with malware, and it was this very expensive and lengthy and strenuous process of recalibrating and retrieving all of the original resources, because I thought that the merriment making method and the resources in the library were gone. They're not. They're restored. But in that process, I had to see how much media was in there, all the different files. And there's actually 5,000 pieces of media in that library. So some of them are like, images and things like that, but I think the last time I counted at 1,500 was years ago, and I just have been saying that, but it's incredible. There's art, and there's tapping, and there's guided resources, and there's masterclasses, and there's workbooks, and there's challenges, and there's phone backgrounds, and there's inspirational Pinterest boards, and there's ways to walk you through how to we go through the merriment making method. So it's embody joy, create joy, spread joy. So embody joy is about loving yourself and your weirdness and tapping into your body and learning about how to somatically process. And then we have how to be weird and have fun and celebrate self-love through different lenses. And then we have the create joy, which is about creating connections and learning what your passion is and how to create art and celebrate life. And then in the embody joys, the spread joy sections, we have the how to be kind, how to give back, how to be altruistic, how to be an activist, and how to be authentic as like someone who's just walking around and people are inspired to be themselves just because you are doing it so deeply and well. So yeah, there's 30 full modules and so much extra stuff. It's insane. And the Merriment Makers Vault you can get for like $37 a month now, and the Feel Good is like $12 a month. So again, check out the uncustomary.org/services, or just go inside the Positive Pulse and look on the sidebar for the Go Further, and you'll find all of that stuff. And if you ever want to find something and you can't, just DM me and I'll send you the direct link. Okay, so today you're also getting some bonuses. I feel like a game show host. So within 24 hours of the live, I upload the replay to Positive Pulse inside of the library, and the list of resources keeps growing. And when you check out this replay, underneath of it, you're going to get some additional things, like you'll have a joy identity inventory, which is going to help you discover your core joy archetype and how it shapes your inner world. You have a joy formula builder, which is a fill in the blank thing to help personalize your path. You have a 3-day archetype challenge, and this is rituals that you can do that are related to your archetype. And that's from the quiz, right? The Alt-Joy Archetypes, uncustomary.org/quiz. And then those are from last week that we're pairing in with this because they're still related about Alt-Joy and the archetypes. And then you're also getting a micro acts of joy rebellion challenge menu for every archetype. So in addition to those 3 things that you had from last week, you're also getting 7 new ideas of rebellious actions tailored to your archetype. So like the reluctant joy seeker is going to be told to wear crazy socks that no one will know. And the heartfelt caregiver is going to be told to like cancel one thing and replace it with nothing. And the quirky nostalgic is going to be told to watch their favorite childhood intro theme song. And those are examples, but there's 7 for each different archetype. And they're free. And then you're also going to get a downloadable, printable copy of the Alt-Joy Manifesto, which was just released this month inside of the Positive Pulse. And this is something that you can print out and tape to your fridge, or you can use it as your screensaver, or you can tuck it into a notebook, or you can scream softly into the void as you read it. I don't care, but it's fun and it's cute and it's beautiful, and I love you. So the world does not need more perfect people. It needs more awake people, people who care. So go be loud, go be soft, just go do it, go care and go be seen and be yourself. And do not forget that you are not a project of self-improvement. You are a sacred experiment that is in a constant state of becoming. So think about this as we cut off today, of something that you could do, a small rebellion that you can take today, something that's against numbness, against shame, against burnout. And leave it for me in the comments. Wherever you're watching, if you can like this video, if you can like the chat, if you can write a comment, any way that you can do that increases and amplifies the signal of Merriment Mondays Live and the Positive Pulse. If you want to share the fact that the Positive Pulse is a resource, that's incredible. Anything that we can do to get more people awake and on this frequency. And speaking of frequency, the new project is coming. Well, it's being announced on June 4th, and you're going to want to be inside the Positive Pulse to make sure that you access the special. I love you, and I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, you have to feel good to do good. I love you.